Hey everyone, this is Kevin from thechesswebsite.com, and today we're going to be going over a nice little strategy and tactic in the middle game called a decoy in chess. And what it usually entails is bringing an opponent to a poisoned square and forcing them by usually means of sacrifice by putting them in a square where they would not normally want to go. If you look at the situation and it's black's move, possibly the last move that you would expect black to make is bringing his queen to b5, because if he does that, we can bring our knight to c7, forking this queen. You're not going to see that move. But if you look at a different position, you may see an opportunity for white to force black to do that. So let's take a look at it. Let's give both sides bishops. We're going to go ahead and give white a light square bishop and black a light square bishop. And if it's white's move, if you can see here, we have a decoy. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to sacrifice a piece and force our opponent to accept that piece and put himself in a situation that he doesn't want to be in. So as we talked about before, our dream scenario would be for this queen to come to b5. But how would we do that? And we do that by bringing our light square bishop to b5, pinning the queen down to the king. Now if you look at it before, the black queen a lot of times will come here knowing that he can just take this bishop and he's not protected. Because most people, when they look at protected pieces, they look at how this piece can be recaptured right away. But if we look at it, if black captures on b5, then now the knight can come to c7. So although it wasn't directly defended, it is indirectly defended by the decoy. So we force them to capture on b5 with their queen, sacrificing our bishop, and in turn we're able to bring our knight to c7. Now we're forking not only the rook but also the queen here. So this is an easy way, and usually you force the queen or the king to move to a poisoned square. In this case, we saw the queen being forced to move to the poisoned square of b5. So we're going to take a look at a lot of examples of how you can see and use decoys in your own game. One of the most famous examples of decoy came from a popular game between Petrosian and Pac-Man, and it's white's move here. And as we talked about before, we want to get specific pieces to a poisoned square, but not always to gain material, and that was the case in this game. It was white's move, and he played queen takes on f6, and after the black king recaptured on f6, then white brought his bishop to e5. Now the black king cannot go back to g7 here, and really that move, bringing this king to f6, was really to expose it for a mating pattern. And after the black king came to g5, the white bishop came to g7, and black resigned in this situation. If you really analyze it, it's actually a mate in 4 for white, and this is what white was looking at. He was not trying to bring the king to f6 to gain material. Quite the opposite. He was giving up material, but he knew that if he brought the king out and exposed him, then in turn he would have a mating pattern. So you always want to be looking for these things. Sometimes you may be bringing a queen or a king to a poison square to gain material, like we saw in the last example, or sometimes you want to bring the king into the center of the game so you can attack it and win the game. So always be looking for both scenarios if you're trying to gain material or just win the game. Now that we've gone over what a decoy is in chess, it's white's move here, and think about what you think would be the best move for white. And hopefully you came up with bishop takes on f7. As you can see here from this position, the only piece that is defending this queen on d8 is the king. And we can sacrifice our bishop and put this king on f7, which is the poison square. Black would least likely to bring his king to f7, but that's exactly what we're going to force him to do. After we take on f7 with our bishop, he cannot come to d7 because of our queen, and he's forced to take on f7. After so, the only defender from the queen on d8 is gone, and now we can take with our queen on d8. So always be looking for pieces that you want to attack or positions that you want to attack, and how you can bring pieces, most notably the queen and the king, and bring those pieces to poison squares so that you can in turn attack or mate the king. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few more examples. Let's take a look at another example, and this is actually from another famous game. So you may have seen this exact position before, but it's white's move, and think about what you think would be white's best move. Obviously it's a decoy, but think about what would be the best decoy in this situation for white. And hopefully you came up with queen to d8. The poison square on this position is d8, and so we're trying to draw the king to d8. In this instance, we're actually not going to gain any material. Instead, we're going to win the game even better. So after the king takes on d8, then we can come and bring our bishop to g5. And this is a double check. We're attacking with our bishop and our rook, and anytime a king is double checked, he has to move his king. He can't move any other piece. So he's forced to move his king. He has two legal moves. One is e8, and we can bring our rook to d8, and it's checkmate. Or his other legal move is king to c7, where we can bring our bishop to d8, and this is checkmate as well. So from this position early on, as you can see, we're going to give up an entire queen just so that we can get the king to the poison square of d8. So sometimes you give up a whole lot of material just to bring a king or a queen. Most notably, if you're giving up an entire queen, you're trying to bring the king to a position, but you're really trying to bring different pieces to specific squares called poison squares so that you can gain material or have a better chance for a win. So let's go ahead and take a look at one more example for decoy so we can really drive home the point of what it is and how to look. Let's take a look at our last example of decoy, and it's white's move. So take a minute. It's a little trickier than the ones we've seen before, but it's white's move, and think about what would be white's best move in this position. And hopefully you came up with rook to d8, a very creative decoy move. As you can see here, the rook can't recapture on d8. Obviously he can, but then we would just take his queen on e2, and white's going to have a very easy game from here. But if you see after rook to d8, if instead he can't bring his king to g7 because of our rook on the g file, but if he brings his his king to h7, then we can now bring our rook to g7, attacking this king. As you can see here, he would like to recapture with his knight, but we have a pin with our queen here. We're pinning down the knight to the king, and it's always easy to see a pin on a specific position. It's a little harder to see a pin 2 moves down the road, but that's exactly what you need to do sometimes with the decoy. We saw that once we played rook to d8 that we could pin this knight down to the king after his only legal move was to h7. So it's very important to see this. But now if the king takes on g7, again he can't come to this 8th rank because of our rook. If he doesn't take this rook, he's going to be pretty much in the same trouble he is if he takes it. He's going to be mated. But if he takes on g7, then our queen can come down to g2, and there's really nothing that the black can do to save himself from defeat. He can try to bring his knight into the action, and we can just take. He can try to bring his queen into the action, and we can take. He really has no other options. He can never come to this 8th rank because of our rook, and at the same time we can use our queen and our pawn here on the h file if we have to. We're going to have a very easy win from here. It's mate in 5, but depending on what black does, we can have mate a little easier. So as you can see here, at the beginning we brought our rook to d8, baiting them, asking them to take our rook so we can have a queen. But if he doesn't, instead we're going to use a few additional tactics such as a pin to win the game very easily. So this is how you can use decoys in your chess game. Always be looking for poison squares where you can draw queens, where you can draw different kings to, and use those opportunities to not only gain material, but put your opponent in a position where they don't want to be, and you can win the game easily. Even if that means giving up a rook, a queen, 2 bishops, whatever it takes to win the game, make sure you go ahead and do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video on decoy in chess. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and make sure you check out the website, chesswebsite.com, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.